Welcome to The Lock Shop with Nielson and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
Let's go.
Hey, what's up, Lock Shoppers? Hope you had a great weekend. Let's do this. We have a ton to get to from a crazy sports weekend. And a pretty busy slate tonight on Monday to get into it. Shout out to Joel, who's first into the chat. There's Rob Maverick. What's up, Cowboy? And Duck Dad says, let's cook. It's exactly what we will attempt to do. Pretty good weekend. Obviously, some incredible action in March Madness, a ton of hockey, some UFC winners, and a wild golf tournament at the Valspar, which we'll get into as well. JBM, Patty G, what's going on, fellas? How are you?
I just got to say, Patty will explain this. A live roll up the rim win on the Lock Shop. I don't think it's ever been done before. I can hear Patty in my ear go, let's go. And as he's rolling up the rim, what'd you get there, Patty?
That's a very good sign for this show.
It's a great sign. It's a great sign. A donut. Free donut. So vibes couldn't be higher right now. A donut, that could have been my stat line for winning bets on Saturday and on Friday. I went absolutely cold, but Sunday, man, oh man, turned things around. I didn't tweet out any of my picks. The group chat with a couple of my other buddies were buzzing. I should have shared the picks because I could not be stopped. 7-0 between totals and between totals, spreads, money lines, you name it. Could not miss yesterday. And I clearly can't miss as well. No free ads, but roll up the win. Got a winner here with a donut. So this weekend is just, rolling into Monday here, and I'm fired up for it.
Jake, what about you? How's the bracket looking? How are the results?
Every day was a war for me, Huss. I think yesterday I started 1-5. And I was just digging myself out of a hole. Ole Miss spread money line to cash. And then I got, trying to remember who the late games. Michigan State to close a parlay yesterday and honestly turned the day around for me. But Saturday had the makings to be one of the great sports days of my year. Arkansas beats St. John's. I just want to switch up here.
Yes.
My Hogs take on number 2 St. John's, Patino, Calipari, the whole storyline. There was the coach cams. I don't know if you guys were watching the game. The coach cams were just as good as the actual game going on. They just kept cutting to Patino. He was going crazy. Calipari's going crazy. Whistles galore. Everyone's in foul trouble. Incredible game. They're off to the Sweet 16. And then Florida loses in regulation. Tampa loses in regulation. The Leafs are lined up in a really, really nice spot to take a grab of the Atlantic. Sitting right there. Up 2-0 in the first period. Have a great 20 minutes. And just gone. The rest of the game, they did nothing. 5 straight goals by Nashville, including empty netter late. And that was it. I could not believe the moment. Once again, too big for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And they squander another great opportunity to take hold of the division. Tampa loses again yesterday, but Florida comes back. They win in shootout, so they pick up 2 points. They're back at the top of the Atlantic. I was so frustrated. Saturday was an all-time sports day. I was miserable for 30 minutes after the Leafs game. Miserable.
I'm glad that you said this. I actually had a tweet all fired up, ready in the chamber, and then I read it again. I'm like, I can't trigger Jake and Pat like this. But it said something like, nice to see the Leafs taking full advantage of Tampa and Florida losing in regulation with a great start, up 2-0 at ... Oh, I mean,
and it all started with Mike Bunting of all people.
The
Michael
turning point of the
Bunting
game was that
double.
high stick.
Oh, I know. Well, that's the thing too. So they were actually almost up 3-0. Carlo to Lawton on the tip. That would have been a great booster for both those guys. Sure enough, doesn't count. They're leading 2-0 into the second. Really not a big deal. They're usually the best second. They're like top 3 second period team in the league. Well, that goes out the window. Pulled the 2-goal lead. And then, it got sloppy late. Like, they did not look good in those second 2 periods. And, we'll see what they look like. This week is a huge week. I tweeted it out. I think they get the Flyers. Then they get the Kings, who obviously we know the Kings at home are pretty good. Or no, maybe it's the Flyers, Sharks, Kings, Ducks. I said if they don't pick up 6 points in that span, I know the Ducks have been in a bit of a battle, but they're starting to lose grip on that Western Conference race. If they don't pick up 6 points in those 4 games, then don't even worry about the division at this point. It's just you're going to be in that 2-3 slot. You're probably going to play Tampa, and you might not even have home ice advantage if you don't find a way to win some hockey games.
One quick thing while we're on this, it was like it was so predictable, to be quite honest, like just so unbelievably predictable. Saturday night in Nashville, the fellows already had their booth set up at Tootsie's. They're ready to go out on the town. Not only does Michael Bunting score that goal, but Toronto's own, Oakville's own Luke Evangelista puts up 3 points. The guy is like as Ontario as it gets. He's from Oakville. He's a Toronto boy. Was a captain of the London Knights. It just always seems to happen. The only thing that could have been more predictable was a goal from Steven Stamkos. But that guy, I don't know if he's got a pulse. No idea what has happened to that guy. But this shouldn't have been. Because everyone, like you guys said, it was all set up for it. But this was a scheduled Toronto Maple Leafs loss. You've seen this movie before, Jake. Like the fact that you possibly thought this was going to be a win is actually insane. It's insane to me. I had this as a scheduled loss.
Well, they went by the schedule. They went by the schedule on that. I have many grievances from Saturday's NHL action. But Jake, on Friday, we shout out to Evdog for getting those lines up early, and we picked a partner parlay, and we had a 2-game to go to OT parlay. The Vancouver Rangers game, which was the early game, Vancouver outshot the Rangers 39-12. They were down a goal on 2 occasions in the third period, bounced back. We got past the 5-minute mark. It's 3-3. Like, that's the gentleman's agreement. All right, guys, we're both getting a point. We'll see what happens in OT. Lankinen couldn't stop anything. And, I mean, that could be, as much as that was brutal for us, because we knew damn well that the Islanders in Calgary were going to overtime, and they did. That would have been 20-1. We will be going back to that well, though. I guarantee you that. We were being all over it. But that was outrageous. And then our partner parlay that we put together was looking phenomenal. We had Minnesota, the Kings going up against the Canes, who are on an 8-game winning streak, go up 6-0 in the second. That one was done. And then we just needed Tampa to beat Utah, which was all going according to plan until we realized that some guy named Brandon Halverson was making his first NHL start, a 10-year ECHL goalie. I legitimately thought it was an e-bug watching the game. He got called up. He got signed 10 months ago. First NHL start. You want to talk about not ready for prime time. That was this guy. Some ugly goals. It didn't look like they had NHL goaltending. And, well, frankly, they didn't. They end up giving up 6. One was in an empty net and losing 5-4, which nuked that. So we were so close on both of those plays from Friday's show. And then it got worse for me. I mean, I would have loved to have some fun with the Leafs, but I'm not saying anything after the Jets lost to Buffalo yesterday. Now,
another big shot discrepancy in that one, right?
Oh, yeah. The Jets. Listen, James Reimer, I don't know what it is. James Reimer has come back to Winnipeg. He's from Manitoba, somewhere in the rural areas. And I'm like, he's done this to us before. Remus just dropped this quote or this tweet. Yesterday's performance by James Reimer against the Jets gave me some flashbacks to some big performances against Winnipeg. October 30, 2021 with the Sharks, 34 of 35 saves in a 2-1 OT win. March 6, 2023, 36 of 38 in a 3-2 OT win. And then, of course, a 41 save shutout as well. So he was phenomenal yesterday. I mean, listen, this wasn't the Jets' best. They stayed in it. Buffalo had no business winning the hockey game. But again, this is a results-based business, so it wasn't all great on the hockey overall. But all of our teams. Hey, shout out to the Oilers, though. I mean, that was a pretty impressive win without Connor and without Leon on Saturday night. Beating the Kraken 5-4. Shout out to the Nuge. That's a guy, to be able to have the luxury of a guy like that as essentially your third center. He doesn't mind playing in the shadows of those guys, but man, when they needed him, he stepped up big. So the hat trick for Nuge in that game against the Kraken, pretty nice stuff for the Oilers, who take advantage of the fact that they still had the rest of their guys outside of the big boys in the lineup, and they got it done.
Quickly, I wanted to say I didn't watch that game live, the Sabres Jets game, but I know you were when we were talking about some of the golf in the group chat, you mentioned how well he played. So I went back and watched the highlights. I think that one save where he just fell down and then was just laying in the crease like a mini sticks goalie, or like how you'd play in the driveway, and just the windmill save from his ass. That just kind of goes to show you it's one of those nights where you're up against it. This is the thing about the NHL. It's not quite the MLB. 82 game season. There's going to just be times where the puck's just not going to go in the net and the goalie's going to stand on his head. So even though Jake and I just went on a rant about the team having a scheduled loss, sometimes I just feel like the NHL script writers have something set in stone, and it doesn't matter. The hockey gods are just making sure this other side wins. And that save right there just kind of let me know, okay, yeah, that's the type of night it was for Reimer and the Sabres.
It was definitely a WTF moment as we were sitting there. So listen, we'll get to the hockey, but those were some of the ups and downs of the weekend. Hey, I got to shout out Big Maple right off the bat. Now, if you were watching Friday's show, he put out some guy to win by sub. I was going to use my $25 bet and get on. Well, I was considering Meatball Molly just because I know her and I think she's pretty funny and a great character. So I said to Maple, "What do you think about Meatball at plus 155?" He's like, "Yeah, I don't think so. I like the other girl by sub." I said, "Okay, Maple, I'll ride with that then." And again, it's the biggest no-brainer bet of the week because regardless of what happens, I got a $25 free bet today from it. Well, what do you know? Her opponent by submission comes in plus 365. So that was a really, really nice one. That was awesome. We'll get to the madness in a second. But Patty, I mean, the other big story here in the lock shop we talked about, the return of Victor Hovland. And I don't know if I can remember a guy coming back for the dead into the winner's circle so quickly. But I mean, he was shooting 81, 82 a week ago. And yet there he is picking up a trophy at one of the most difficult courses on the PGA Tour.
That just kind of goes to show you that, these golfers, whatever they're fighting and whatever they're going through, if they can just turn things around like that, that's why at one point he was one of the best players on the planet. I still think from a skill set standpoint, he still is. 7th PGA Tour win now. And this one here seemed like this might have been the most impossible. This guy, like you said, was shooting in the 80s. I think he had a quote on, was it Friday or Thursday, just about how lost he is. Like, if you listen to this guy in his press conferences over the last 6 months, you would think he's talking to a shrink or talking to his therapist. Like, I'm lost. I don't know what's going on. I've tried to fix my swing and it's completely messed with my head. And then he goes out because he shot a 70 on Thursday. Then it's a 70, 67, 69, 67, a tidy 11 under, like you said, at the Valspar, at Copperhead, a really tough tournament. But before that, players miscut, shot an 80. Arnold Palmer in Invitational, 77-72, missed the cut. The Genesis, 76, missed cut. Before that, Century, T36 and T22 at Pebble Beach. So, I mean, I always put a lot of stock into recent form. This was an outlier this week. I so pumped to see Vic. You and I know we're both big Vic fans. He'd been on our card a lot over the years here. I will also say a part of me was happy to see Victor Hovland win, not just because we like him, but also because JT has been on your card, been on my card, but you last week. I feel like it's been a couple of times this year where we bet someone, we get off them for a week, and then they end up in the winner's circle. Part of me for you, and even a little bit for me, because he was on my card a couple of weeks ago. If he would have won this week, I would have been kicking myself in the ass, because we even talked about it this week. We saw his number, like, too short for JT. Let's pass on him. That would have been an all-time stick your foot in your mouth moment on the lock shop if we both glazed over him quickly and went elsewhere with our card.
Yeah, it was, listen, he played very well to get right back into it, but did not have it when it counted. And Vic did. I mean, 2 big birdies. They talk about those 3 finishing holes. And it was nuts. Since they've been doing the tournament, I don't know if you saw that shot, like the final 3 holes, players are a total of 5,600 over par. The rest of the course, it's 2,900. So, I mean, those 3 holes are producing twice as many birdies as the other 15 holes are on the golf course. So, one other good thing happened, and this was great, speaking of boosts and promos at Coolbet, did cash the 30%er with Corey Connors. And, Pat, going into that was a T20. Corey was around 17th or 15th or something like that, kind of one shot up on that T20 line, and then started off with a bogey, and any hope of him kind of barging into that top was lost. And then it was just that sweat of the T20 line. But good on him. He had a couple back 9 birdies, ended up holding it down going through. So a nice cash on the T20. And I guess speaking of regular lock shop bets, our guy Sepp, the streak finally broke, Pat, of T20s there. But nice to get Corey in the top 20.
3 straight top 10 finishes now for Connors. Like, this guy is absolutely locked in. I think, as we always do, because he is a Canadian, but I think like this is a guy that we would be crazy not to. And maybe this is where we go. Like, maybe take a look at the Masters. He is a guy that whenever talking about Canadians, his game fits so well with Augusta, with that ball striking. Now that it starts to, it's feeling like his putter, since he switched from that blade putter to the mallet putter, he's rolling it way better. I think we're on the precipice of a Corey Connors breakthrough here. I know he's got the 2 wins at the Valero, but I think he wins. Although the Valero is coming up in a couple of weeks, I think that's an auto bet for him. I think he wins a big tournament coming up here in the next few weeks, whether it's the Masters, whether it's the RBC Heritage or something. He's going to win a signature event. I really feel it.
You know what? We'll touch on TGL in a minute, but just while we're on the golf, it's always nice to look at these lines on Mondays. They are just out right now. It is the Houston Open, or I guess they're calling it the Texas Children's Houston Open. And guys, I can't remember a board like this in a long time. I mean, listen, we've seen some super short numbers on Scotty Scheffler before. He's at plus 350 for this tournament. You've got Rory kind of where he started for the Players before that number doubled as we got closer to the top, but he's plus 750. But then a massive gap. Like, there is nobody in the teens. There's nobody in the low 20s. And then you go to Rye, JJ Spawn, Davis Thompson at 28, and a group at 33 that includes Wyndham Clark, Jason Day, Tony Finau, Michael Kim, and Sung Jae Im. But it's basically those two guys versus the field, or at least that's the way it feels, Pat.
Yeah, you know what, man? Like, I don't want to spoil the show on Wednesday, but I'm really thinking 30% boost plus 350 on Scotty. That seems, or maybe even look at Rory. Like, I mean, Rory right now, you could probably argue is playing better than Scotty. But I think with this 30% profit boost, I think one of them will be used on either Rory or Scotty outright to win. The drop off is just insane. Aaron, where have we ever seen Aaron Ryan number 3 in the odds in a tournament before?
Yeah.
Never mind Scotty, Rory, Aaron Ryan, like the big 3. Is that the new big 3 here? Is that what we're talking about?
The big 3 behind them: Aaron Rye, JJ Spawn, and Davis Thompson, ahead of Wyndham Clark and Finau and Sung Jae. I mean, and then it was interesting board, but if you do want to get out, I see some 40s on Minwoo, Pendy.
I like Minwoo here.
Jaeger's been in the mix quite a bit. And
I think Jaeger won here last year. Didn't he outlast Scotty Scheffler? I think Scheffler, was that not that last year? Scheffler,
I think you're right, Patty.
And he missed that, 2.5, 3 foot putt. And Jaeger ended up winning. I'm pretty sure that was that tournament, the Houston Open.
He's been pretty consistent since then. I mean, he's been on lots of leaderboards.
Oh, and he matches. This is a golf course here. And again, not to get too much into the weeds and take away our Wednesday show, but this is a course for mashers, guys that can hammer it off the tee, really do well here. That's why I think also, just putting your money down on a Scotty or a Rory is probably not the worst strategy. You mentioned your guy, Tony Finau. Like, I've been looking at some of the analytics and some of the tee to green numbers at this golf course. Tony has been really, really good here. So I'm circling around Tony. I'm circling around Minwoo. And then even like a guy like Maverick McNeely is another guy that, really bangs it off the tee as well. So that's where I'm looking. But ultimately, with that 30% profit boost, man, how do you not think about just saying, give me money on one of the best golfers on the planet and go Scotty or Rory here?
We'll get into all of that, and we'll touch on the TGL final a little bit later on. We get into some picks for today. We've got some games in the NHL.
Huss, I will say, we chatted on this before the show. Hovland was as high as 65 to 1 to win the Masters. He's now down to 40 to 1 after that win. I think right after the Players, it jumped up pretty big because of the missed cut and some bad rounds. Down to 40 to 1 now for Hovland at the Masters, a couple weeks.
That's still a very bettable number if you're a Vic guy and you saw what he did today and you think that this can maybe, Patty, already in pick for some futures. Hey, one other thing that came through and coming out of the weekend, and who would have thunk this? How about the Huss 3-0 on Friday with our spread picks from the draft, coming from behind to win at 4-2, and better yet, not only do the little fun bragging rights in the lock shop, I did, guys, use the 30% profit boost on those 3 picks on Friday.
Nice.
I did have a nice win on those. Still can't believe Norfolk State was able to cover the 28.5. They were down 20, like 2 minutes into the game.
Yeah, blink. Well, it's funny you say that, Huss. I had Florida first half. And I can't remember what the number was, maybe 9.5 or 10.5 or something like that. And I was like, oh, we're cruising. I was like doing some chores around the kitchen. And all of a sudden I look up and they're like dancing around the first half number. And I'm like, what is Norfolk State doing? Like, can you guys just settle down? Let me catch this first half bet. But yeah, like you said, they fought hard. It just never really got close enough for them against Florida.
Easy peasy on Friday with Michigan State and with UConn. And now, I mean, Jake, just give for people that haven't been paying attention or, kind of just glanced at their brackets. I mean, it seems like there's a lot of chalk so far. The top teams have done well. There's been a few really nice, fun, close games. I mean, that Maryland-Colorado State one went right down to the wire yesterday. But as much as that first week and first round is sort of fun and you're all hoping for upsets, it seems like there's a pretty clear delineation between the top teams, and they've flexed through the first two matches.
Well, and that's what people talked about, like, leading up to this tournament people were expecting a chalk tournament. And I mean, you look and that's the way it's kind of gone. All the number ones still in play. Arkansas is the highest seed right now at a 10. They beat a number 2 in St. John's. BYU, a number 6. I think they were the next one up. They're playing Alabama, who was a number 2. Yeah, like we saw a few upsets in the first round. I think McNeese was one of the big ones. A lot of talk about Aura Khan.
Get the heck out of it. See you later,
manager.
pal.
I was sick of him by the end of it myself, so I'm with you there, Patty.
Come on, respect the Aura.
No, here's the thing. I was all in on Aura like a couple of weeks ago, and they talked about it on Part of My Take. I think in today's age with social media, it was so in your face. Also, no upsets happened. There was no goal keys of the world. There was no other superstars. So social media did nothing but shove this kid in our faces. And that's all it was. There was no buzzer beaters. There was no big upsets. There was no, random guy from random school who could not miss. He was the story, and that's why it was shoved in my face. And I will say this. There was a jersey malfunction, and the fact that he is now too good for fixing jerseys as your team. You're the team manager. That's your job. You got to do that. And the fact that now he's got NIL deals coming out of his brains. He is also in the transfer portal. He's going to NC State too with Will Wade. Yep. You're too big time. He's gone too big time.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious. When Will Wade took the job, he is with him too. So Aura is now going there. So what really drew me to not be an Aura guy was when there was a jersey malfunction, the jersey needed to get fixed. He's too big time. They had the assistant manager was the one out there fixing.
I will say Patty was all over McNeese. It was like game early. Like that Clemson game, him and I were texting, and we're like, hard to fade McNeese, but Will Wade, he discussed it on the show. Will Wade with, the fact he was already going to NC State. They find a way to beat Clemson. They actually crushed Clemson in the first half. I don't know if you guys remember that one. It was like 31-13.
Oh, yeah, it was a bloodbath.
Patty and I had the under Huss at like 147 and a half, and there was 44 points in the first half. I was like, I'd already checked it off. I'm like,
yep.
92 second half points. I won by half a point. I think Patty pushed a 147, 92 second half points in the Clemson McNeese State game. McNeese goes on to play Purdue. Purdue crushes them, and that's the end of the road for them. But the good thing about where the tournament's at now is, listen, we had a ton of fun, like round of 64, round of 32, so many games. Like you're just engulfed in college basketball. Now we got some really good teams left. And, like, you go look at the futures right now. Like, there are so many good teams with still some really good value. Like, Duke, Florida, Auburn, Houston, those are number ones. You're probably not jumping on those at this point. You might have jumped on them pre-tournament, but, Duke 230, Florida 380, Auburn 5, and then Houston 550. But you go to Tennessee, 2 seed, 14-1. They're in the Houston side of the bracket. Alabama, 16-1. They're on the Duke side of the bracket. Michigan State, 22-1. I got a ticket with them at 32-1 pre-tournament. And I'll tell you what, Michigan State has slow starts. I'd consider taking the first half of Ole Miss in that game. But when they come on and they get going on the fast break,
they're a problem.
My God, they're fun to watch, man. Izzo has these guys, and they play so fast. I don't know how other teams are able to keep up for 40 minutes of basketball. It's pretty crazy. So a lot of good teams left. Anyways, go ahead, Patty.
No, I was just going to say, I'm funny that you said the futures. I thought you were going elsewhere with this, but I'm glad you did bring that up. But the way that I was looking at it is usually in these like Sweet 16 games, like the spreads are way, way more out of whack. We're seeing way more double digits because the likes of the McNeese states, the likes of a couple of years ago with San Diego, like when you have those Cinderella runs, they get into the Sweet 16 and then they run into a true top 5, top 10 team in the nation, and they get the doors blown on them. I think I said this on our show on Wednesday or Tuesday, that I think the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8 will actually set up for better games. When you look at the spreads, they're all really close. BYU, Alabama, 4.5. That might be the bet of the week. I am a BYU believer. I was before, Huss. I know you and I really, really high on the Cougs. Alabama looks horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. I'm shocked that this is only 4.5 points. 6.5 points between Florida and Maryland. Florida favored as a number 1 seed, only minus 6.5. The Duke spread, pretty big, 8.5. But then you get Ark and Texas Tech, minus 5.5. Mississippi, Michigan State, 2.5. Tennessee, minus 4.5 against Kentucky. 7.5 Auburn against Michigan. I like Michigan in that spot too. And then Purdue, Houston the favorite by minus 7.5. I think we're in for a lot of great games. The product itself will be way better than what we've seen in years past. And I know the casuals and the folks that just make their bracket, turn it on, and a part of me as well. I'm kind of disappointed that we didn't get many buzzer beaters. I'm disappointed we didn't get a San Diego State of the world or whoever knockoff. We didn't get that this year. But what we will get down the stretch is much better basketball. And I think there'll be closer games. So we will have some of these buzzer beaters. We finally got one. That one game yesterday, which was absolutely awesome, that ended up cashing an over for me with that final bucket. So that I definitely liked it even more. But I think this, for a product standpoint and from a performance standpoint, this actually might be better for March Madness because we're going to truly see better basketball on the hard court.
By the way, I mean, we just went through those futures. We do also have numbers on each region. The number 1 seeds, Auburn is minus 143 to win the South. Duke minus 172 to win the East. Houston minus 133 to win the Midwest, and the same number on Florida to win the West region. So you can jump on those before things get going again on Thursday.
Jake, Michigan State
plus 325.
I
love that.
That sounds really good. That sounds really good.
Listen, Ole Miss crushed Iowa State yesterday. Iowa State missing one of their top guys. I kind of discussed that on our Tuesday episode where I said, Iowa State might be a little higher ranked than they should be because they weren't disclosing information that they should have. Listen, Ole Miss is going to be in tough against this Michigan State team. And then you're going to line up nice. You're either going to get an all-Michigan matchup, which would be awesome. I think we can all agree. If not, it's Auburn. And Auburn's been, near the end of the season, I know they won a couple games here. They haven't really beaten anyone yet. They beat a 16 seed, and then they beat Creighton. Guess what? The entire Big East is out of the tournament. Creighton, as much as, they got some good stories there, a couple, older guys in Ashworth and Cockburn, it wasn't going to go their way. I think Michigan State lines up nicely against anyone left in that division. Plus 325 is nice to get Izzo for the Final Four.
I think that Big Ten prop, the over-under wins for the Big Ten, I think has already cashed.
Yeah, they were on fire.
It was 11.5, and I think they were 11 going into yesterday's action.
Jeez.
Which is
someone else said in the chat too, Huss, the Sweet 16. It must have been the SEC one. I think I called it Secure the Weekend, but someone had said the Sweet 16 combo cash. Bronco Nick, Sweet 16 combo card hit. So that must have been Bama, Florida, Arkansas. No, it wouldn't have been Arkansas. I don't know. Kentucky, Tennessee, and Auburn maybe to make the Sweet 16. I picked a lot of the higher seeds. So maybe that was a nice one. That was the back end of the combo cards. The other game I'd love to touch on, Florida UConn yesterday. UConn back-to-back defending champs, and they played like they deserved to be there. Gave Florida everything they had, but I got to tell you, this guy Walter Clayton Jr. got to be my favorite player of the tournament. Great name, and this guy is unbelievable. The way he can score, he scores like Curry. The three he made when Florida was up 3 late to kind of hit the dagger. He's running to his right, stops, fades, and just nails this three. The guy's unbelievable. He used to be on Iona with Rick Pitino, and then decided instead of going with Pitino to St. John's, to take on a spot at Florida. He was an All-American at Florida this year. He is their best player. He had 23 points in both games to start the tournament. I think he was the first Florida Gator to have 20-plus in his first 2 tournament games since 1987. So, pretty legit player. Keep an eye on him. I do have Florida in my bracket, so I am a little biased, but I was a big fan of his game. It was they're fun to watch, man. Florida, another team where I was like, holy moly, man. Like, how do you stop this? It's threes and just dumping alley-oops. Like, everything in the net is hard and heavy. Like, I don't know. It's fun to watch.
Do you recall what was the total in that Florida UConn game? Did it go over? It ended up at 152.
I don't know. I'd have to go back and look, but it probably was close. I'll go back and look as we're still chatting.
Yeah, I bet UConn to cover. I didn't bet the total in that one. So.
UConn, by the way, they're out of the tournament now. They've covered in 14 straight March Madness games.
Yeah.
Like, Hurley has those guys playing. When they win big, and then when they lose, they're not going to lose by much. And you saw that against Florida, against the overall, like, one of the top teams in college basketball this year.
Let's kick over to the NHL and get some action for tonight's games. And by the way, speaking of futures, just while we have been here, and I've been sniffing around on Coolbet while we've been talking about it, I could not help but notice a big time move in the Hart Trophy lines. Have you seen this?
I have not.
Hellebuck is now minus 175. McKinnon is plus 250, and Draisaitl is down to 4-1. Now, obviously, this is because he's out right now. But that is crazy. I mean, starting off at the 20-1 that we got on it in the end of November, obviously that number went way down. There's some 8s, and even last week it was as high as 2-1. Now minus 175 for Connor Hellebuck. So I can tell you, if he is able to pull this down and win it, there's going to be some very, very happy WSTers that have been with me on that one for the last few months. With that loss yesterday, the Central got, I guess, a bit more interesting. The Jets are still minus 556 favorites, but it was more like 1,000, minus 1,000 a little bit earlier on. And we still got Canadian NHL teams to make the playoffs. Over 5.5 is plus 345. As devastating as that loss was for Vancouver, Calgary continues to find ways to grab 2 points. They've been good at getting to OT and then figuring out a way to get that second point.
Fellas, I don't know. I know I do know the Ev Dog is a friend of the program and he listens a lot. Yeah. But this is getting a little bit fishy because not only does Hellebuck move to minus 175, now Lane Hudson's starting to close out a little bit here. Minus 110 to Macklin Celebrini at minus 120. Jake, what was that when we were talking about it on the program last? The line was even.
Celebrini was like 400, minus 400, and Hudson was like plus 250, I think.
Because you fired out that tweet, right?
Yeah, I have the tweet here. I'm just going to pull it up. But yeah, I said, "There's like, how are you not getting a piece of Hudson where he was sitting? Like it was." Sorry, there it is. Yeah, 2-1. So he was plus 200 when I made the tweet. Celebrini was minus 250. Now they're basically in a dead even heat. And Montreal is still sitting in that playoff spot, second wild card in the East. Like, that is a big, big movement over the weekend. And I'm pretty happy to see it because I jumped on that number.
Me too.
I jumped on that number. The minute I tweeted out, I'm like, well, I'm not missing out on this. So, yeah, the other one I wanted to that's the one I wanted to mention, I guess, the Calder. But the Overhuss, I did check it out. 150.5. So it just got over by the sounds of it.
Excellent. And up-to-date standings after the weekend for the Atlantic. The Panthers minus 145, Leafs 2-1, Lightning 5-1. Tonight in the league, we got 4 games. Vancouver is in New Jersey. Jersey minus 141, Canucks plus 120. The Blue Jackets are on Long Island to take on the Islanders. Columbus plus 110. Goodbranson and Monahan activated for Columbus. Monahan's been out since January 7th. So that's a big ad for Columbus. We've got Minnesota in Dallas to take on the Stars. Minis plus 175. The Stars are minus 208. And then Detroit and Utah. In Utah, Detroit plus 140, Utah minus 164. I'll be honest, Jake. I mean, just thinking about overtimes, I could make an argument that Vancouver Jersey game has it written all over it. Certainly the Islanders Columbus game or Detroit and Utah. I mean, to me, we got to focus in on teams that are desperate to get points and will be happy to go to overtime and then hope to get two. It's the regulation losses that kill you right now. I mean, unless, of course, you're like Detroit and has a big gap to run. But I think probably the one that I like the most would be Vancouver, Jersey.
I personally like Columbus, New York, I think the most.
Columbus Islanders? Do we want to go with those two?
So Columbus is getting Sean Monahan back. I saw some tweets. Sean Monahan returning with 13 games to go in the season. It's written in the stars, boys, for Johnny. I think Columbus is going to take a run at this. I've already jumped on that money line tonight, but I think that's a game. You know, the Islanders are at 73 points, 2 points out of the second wild card. Columbus 71. They're 4 points out of the second wild card. Columbus is going to make a run at this. They got to win hockey games, but they'll take points where they can get them. I think that's one of my favorites. So if you like the other one, Huss, I think that lines up nicely for a little two-gamer again. Patty?
You guys have bigger stones than me. I was looking at Utah Hockey Club in regulation minus 103. But I'm quite fine with going with keeping it simple, go with two dogs. Maybe to wean myself off the weekend, I'll put a little Patty nose puck together and I'll have Utah in reg into that one. But I'll ride with you guys with the two.
We're overtime hunters here, Pat. We don't even care who wins the game. We want.
Do we want to line it up with a little same way we did Saturday, or do we have other picks? Patty likes Utah and reg. Like, are there other picks out there? I don't mind Columbus tonight.
Well, put it this way. If we're going to do the double draw, because, again, we can just do that, and then if we want to do money lines or whatever on it. But the Canuck Jersey draw and the Jackets Islanders draw comes out to plus 1642.
Yeah, we're getting a nice juice on that.
Like, we should have hit that 20-1. Like, I am back at it. I think that with the numbers that we're getting, with the amount of OT we're going to get in some of these games, I think these are plus EV bets. We're going to hit one of these. Even if we do one every day this week and hit one, we'll be well above it, considering it's going to be 17-18-1 by the time it goes up on the board.
I'm seeing Big Uke in the chat, too. Let's get an over 1.5 OT games for tonight. I'm sure we could probably make that happen with the Ev Dog. I can shoot him a message here after the show.
Yep.
And see if we can get that up in the exclusives. But, yeah, I'm the games, Huss, I looked at the board today and I was like, only 4 games, but the way they lined up, like Detroit, Utah, not as much, but like 3 pretty big playoff caliber games here.
Oh, yeah.
I'm on Vancouver as well, plus 120. I think they were as high as plus 130 earlier today. They might be getting Demko back based on what Elliot Friedman was tweeting yesterday. Lankinen had that rough go, like we talked about against the Rangers. So, if they can get Demko back, that's a boost for them. Monahan coming back to the Blue Jackets, that's a boost for them. And we'll see what happens down the stretch here with 13 games left for most of these teams or less.
So I guess Paterson and Höglander are day-to-day, questionable.
Okay.
For this game tonight. Cheadle's still out. And that was one of the things. They were trying to come back. They didn't have Elias in that game, and they did it twice and then gave up that goal. By the way, just as an aside, Quinn Hughes, oh my God, is he incredible? He was a one-man show in that game to get them back in. Every time he was on the ice, it was in the other team's zone. He was ripping around. He was phenomenal. Now, so let's do the double draw to see what we can get. And then I'll tell you what, guys, if we want to do a little partner parlay, you guys each pick your favorite side for tonight and allow me to add the Atlanta Drive to the parlay, because tonight is the TGL final. I actually bet this last night at minus 132. It's now minus 139. but I think people know that the Dirty Birds, JT, Billy Ho, Cantley, ready to go tonight.
Well, Huss, I mean, I know golf now shouldn't care about recent form based off our guy Vic, but JT probably should have won the tournament yesterday.
Yep.
Billy Ho was T4. Cantley didn't play this week, but he was just outside the top 10 at the Players. And then you look at the other side of New York. I mean, those guys are in absolute shambles when it comes to their game on the PGA Tour. I get it; it's a little bit different for TGL, but this should be like minus 150, minus 160. This is not capped properly. I don't know what's going on. I've checked around at other books. It's like this is one of the better lines that you can actually get on Atlanta Drive. So I agree with you. I'm 1000% fine with it being on the partner parlay. I'm also going to bet it individually with you as well. I know you told me I'm not allowed on the Dirty Bird trade, but I'm going to do it.
You are now. I mean, now that the Bay is out, you can join us for one final matchup for the championship. So yeah, I got a significant wager on Atlanta to win at minus 132. They're minus 139 right now. So if we throw that on, what is your guys' favorite sides? If you want to take a couple of picks just for a partner parlay, you can take one of those games that we just mentioned too. Like that was for overtime. And go to overtime and win.
Blue Jackets for me. Like getting Monahan back, I think this is the one you got to go get tonight. And the Canucks with those injuries, Huss, that you talked about, I don't know if I want to necessarily take the risk with them. So I think it's Blue Jackets for me plus 110. Not a bad little number there.
And
I like Utah Hockey Club, whether we go in reg or if we just want to go on the money line since it's a parlay minus 164. If we put those three games together, you're looking at plus a 481 before Evdog gets his little pause on him.
Let's do that. Atlanta Drive in the TGL, Blue Jackets money line at plus 110, and Utah HC minus 164 on the money line, plus 481. And by the time we're done with it, or Evdog is, we'll be on the other side of 5-1, and it'll be looking good.
I love that. I'm fired up for this one, fellas.
One other thing, just before we wrap it up. Canada got jobbed, as we know, against Mexico on Thursday. But how about last night's performance in the third place game? And you know what was funny? TSN covered it like crazy, which I'm glad that they did. You know, in most competitions, like, can you imagine if there was a third place game in the Four Nations or something like that? It would have been like whatever. It was far from whatever last night between Canada and the U.S. And Davies goes down early, gets pulled from the game. Marsh loses his mind on the sideline, gets kicked out, and it didn't matter. Jonathan David, late. Canada wins 2-1. And I'll be honest, with all the bullshit we've been dealing with between these two countries in the trade war, I'm dead serious. I'm more happy beating the United States on the road in the U.S. in the third place game than I would have been if they beat Panama in the gold medal game and won their first trophy in 25 years. Think we know that Mexico game, they got jobbed a little bit, not getting that penalty. And hey, credit to Mexico for winning. But this USA-Canada rivalry in soccer has become kind of owned by Canada right now. And we kicked them where it hurts and put salt on the wounds after their choke job against Panama. And we made it even worse for them with that win yesterday. So shout out to the Reds for that big win yesterday as an underdog on the road in the Nations tournament.
Yeah, that was awesome to see. And I'll be quite honest. It's amazing. It makes it, again, part of me agrees with you for sure. Anytime you can body bag the U.S., especially with what's going on right now, is great. But like the fact that I think it's pretty clear our program with Jesse Marsh at the helm is in so much better of a spot.
Love like this guy.
I'd run through a brick wall for this guy. I think everyone on the team will. Like, I mean, you just look at the difference, the amount of money that goes into their program compared to what ours does. Their coach makes like $6 million a year. Their budget is $300 million. They've got a training facility in Atlanta. That's $2 million. And we've got the better program. We're going to eventually creep up. The way that the world soccer rankings work is ass backwards, and it will take us a while for us to eventually climb up. But if you talk to the real talking heads of soccer outside of the U.S., might I say, they'll tell you who the better program is. And for that makes me so damn happy.
Hey, one other thing we should touch on, and I see Bronco Nick in the chat. The easiest minus 133 hit of the weekend was Sunday morning. The Homan Empire winning the Women's World.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny? That Tirzoni from the Tirzoni rink from Switzerland was on top of the standings the entire time, but lost to Homan in the round robin. Homan was 3-0 against her in the big events this year, and then got the job done again. What was the nervous time was the Koreans. Mm-hmm. And that Korean team has had, I mean, not that anyone's had much success against Homan this year, but the Koreans had been that team. They won in the round robin, and what a thriller of a semifinal. I mean, it went to extra ends. Homan needed to be her best in the extra end to get the win, and then they were in control yesterday. So, yes, awesome on just great win by Rachel Homan. She finishes a historic year. I think they lost 6 times all season long, and then a couple in the Worlds, and was it one at the Scotties? I mean, legendary stuff from the reigning queen of curling. Now we do have the men's curling championships coming up. That's getting underway. I want to say next, this upcoming weekend. But all the odds are up as far as for finishing places. Scotland. Muat plus 135. He's been clearly the best in the world. But Brad Jacobs in Canada plus 195. And then a pretty big gap before I assume it's Nicodine playing for Sweden at plus 525. And the Swiss have been quite good. And then Returnaz as well. So, I mean, Italy in the mix. You kind of got 5 teams that look like they are booked, like they've got a chance to win. And then from Germany down 25-1. Or greater, but top 6 placings, and then champ, top 2, top 3, top 4, all up right now. We'll do a little bit more on the curling tourney as we get closer to the event. But gang, keep your eyes out for the combo cards, because we're coming at you with the double draw tonight. Vancouver, Jersey, Columbus and the Islanders, and then the partner parlay tonight. Atlanta Drive in the TGL, Blue Jackets on the road at New York Islanders, money line, and Utah HC to get it done at home on the money line, and that'll be on the other side of 5-1 by the time we fire it up. Boys, fun show today, fun weekend, and I am very much looking forward to this TGL final tonight. We'll keep an eye on this Amazon game and hope it goes to OT. And considering Patty. Early, but have a good one. The vibe of the roll up to win at the start of the show is to take us through Monday. So, fellas, thanks for doing this. You have a great one. There's the winner. Enjoy that donut, Pat. Good luck to everyone, and we'll see you tomorrow on the Lock Shop here on Edmonton Sports Talk, brought to you by our friends at Coolbet. Have a good one, gang.
All-time finish.